So, I've been playing boomer shooters for an extremely long amount of time. For reference, I was born in '02. I'm currently 21. The first boomer shooter I ever saw was Wolfenstein 3D at 8 years old. So, yeah, I caught them early. And it's kind of funny that the first boomer shooter I ever saw was really the first FPS game ever made. And to preface this, I did not have much exposure to any real video games. I had a Game Boy Advance that my cousin gave me that I was allowed to play on, like, car rides that were long. I wasn't allowed to use the thing very frequently, ever. It stayed in my dad's and my mom's closet. I only really saw Wii games, so I wasn't really exposed to anything particularly violent. I didn't know what an Xbox was, I didn't know what anything was. And Flash games when my parents let me play on the computer. So I had no video game consoles whatsoever. So one day, I am sitting there watching cartoons or something, and I'm about 8 years old, so it's about the 3rd grade for me, and I hear my dad with this music in his computer, in his office. And I was like, what's that? Because sometimes I just kind of randomly walk around, and I just kind of walked over, peeked over his shoulder to see what he was doing, and I saw he's playing this game from, like, a distance, and I see him in the game open up this door, and there's, like, this gun on the screen, and he's just mowing down an entire group of dudes, and they're all screaming, there's blood everywhere, and to my 8-year-old brain, who has no concept of any real game past, say, like, Lego Star Wars, this was like I didn't know video games could be like that. And my dad turned around and he saw me, and I had this look on his face, and he could tell that I had just seen that, and he was like, do not tell your mother. Go away. And because of the fact that my 8-year-old ADHD-riddled brain could not forget that image, I was like, I don't know what that is. So for the next, like, 3 or 4 weeks, I was just like, I don't know what that game is, but that looks really, really cool. And then my mom went on a business trip or something. She was gone for the weekend, and it was just me, my sister, and my dad. And the entire weekend, it was spent me playing the Star Wars Republic Commando demo, which was a game I had previously had a fixation for because that looked really, really cool, and I found it as, like, a trailer on, like, the Tartakovsky Clone Wars Volume 1 DVD, and I was just like, what the hell is this? Because this looks really, really cool also. So I played that, and then I played Wolfenstein 3D with my dad, and it was just a weekend of Pizza Hut and Wolfenstein 3D, and it was great. And at the time, I draw lots of fan art. I since do not do that, because A, my drawings were terrible, and B, I play music now, so that's just kind of my artistic outlet, along with making videos, of course. And I started drawing fan art for Wolfenstein 3D. And this was like BJ Blazkowicz with his fucking gun and shooting people and everything else, and there's blood everywhere and stuff like that, and I'm drawing this fan art, right? And then parent-teacher conferences comes around. This is like a month and a half later. And they pull out my drawing notebook because they want to look at this stuff and want to show my parents stuff, what I'm doing, this and that, whatever. And they just flip through pages of dead Nazis and dudes standing over them with machine gun with dead Nazis. And needless to say, when my parents got home from parent-teacher conferences that night, they were not happy with me. My dad was in trouble, I was in trouble, and that was my first exposure to boomer shooters. And that was an incredibly formative experience for me. To this day, I find not only incredibly humorous, but it's still just like, it's just really funny to me. It's also incredibly formative because a couple years later, I became obsessed with Doom because I was like, oh, I wonder if they made more games. And then I figured out what Doom was, and then I became obsessed. This is around the time when I was in 5th grade, along with Minecraft at the time. And I wanted to play that. My parents said no because I have Catholic parents and demon's bad. So my dad bought me Star Wars Dark Forces instead because it's basically the same thing and it's Star Wars. And, well, I love it and still love it. It wasn't Doom. And then I discovered Duke Nukem 3D, and I'm trying to find a way to play it, and I keep looking up on Steam, and I can't figure out how to get DOSBox to work or anything else, so I'm not able to play the game, and I'm kind of sad about it, and I'm talking to my dad about it, and he's like, well, just look it up, it's on Steam, and I was like, Dad, it's not on Steam, I've checked multiple times. He's like, well, just check again, and I look it up on Steam, and it's there, and it's the literal day Megaton came out, or like a couple days after, it had just come out, basically, and my dad bought it for me, and I played it so much. And I find this really funny because Duke 3D is, while about as violent as Doom, is infinitely more inappropriate because for a 10-year-old, It's boobs and swear words, and for a 10-year-old, that is like heaven. And then my parents become aware of what's actually in the game, and my mom once again gets mad at me and my father. So I'm no longer allowed to play Duke Nukem 3D anymore. So then I have to get my boom shoot fixed, because at this point, I wasn't allowed to touch anything made by id, so no Quake, nothing. I wasn't allowed. And then a little while after that, I discover Serious Sam. Start playing that a lot because I did this thing where I would say, hey dad, it's fine, there's this stuff, but it's okay, you can do this. And look, instead of the gore, you can change it to like flowers, and it's family friendly, you know, flowers. Look at these, it's nice, it's flowers. Somehow this worked. And I never turned on the flower mode, I kept the gore on, and it was really quite funny. And to this day, I still really enjoy Serious Sam. It has its problems, but I still really enjoy it. And fast forward the next few years, I start getting to middle school, I start playing Half-Life and Half-Life 2, the rest of the Jedi Knight series, etc., games like that. And then, like, when I'm in the 6th grade, I'm finally allowed to play Doom in Doom 2 via the BFG edition, which was great. I love those games. I still play Doom and Doom 2 now, mods and all. I've played more Doom than any other game. So a few years later after that, I'm in the 8th grade, and Doom 2016 comes out. And at this point, I had just been confirmed as a Catholic. So me being the good little Catholic boy that I am, I decide to ask my parents for the new Doom. They say no. By this point, my parents are divorced, by the way, so I was only able to play games at my dad's as well. And then in my salesman-ish, con artist 13-year-old brain, I was like, but killing demons is a good thing, because that's what Jesus would want me to do as a Catholic. And then they look at me funny, and they walk away, but then the next day, apparently they go to GameStop, and they talk to them about this, and he's like, I mean, yeah, it's just demons. I mean, he's not necessarily wrong, and somehow this worked, and I was able to get the game. And at this point, I start becoming obsessed with boomer shooters again. Then a few months roll by, and then I'm in high school. I'm a freshman in high school, and I have atrocious handwriting, for the record. I don't know why it's so bad. It's just not good. And I get a laptop as a technology accommodation because I have an IEP, and I had some issues as a kid, so they tried to throw me a bone. Give me a laptop so that way written assignments are easier. And the first thing I did was I went home and tried to find ways to put games on it. So I put Duke 3D on it. I put Doom and the first Halo. That's not a boomer shooter, but I think it's worth mentioning. And at this point, I had only been playing BFG edition, so I had no idea what a source port was. And I eventually found this weird folder download thing that had the WADs in it, and I figured out how to make GZ Doom work, which I know is incredibly easy, but keep in mind, I barely knew how to use computers. And I start getting into Doom modding, I start playing Duke Nukem 3D a bunch, and at that point, I also start downloading movies as well. It was just before I knew about, like, those free movie websites. I just started downloading the MP4s onto my computer with somehow, I don't exactly remember how, but I watched a bunch of movies. And at some point, the computer broke. I'm not sure how it broke. I don't remember why or how, but it borked itself. And a few days after that, I get in trouble with school. And I get suspended because Hardcore Henry was on it, and there's boobs in that. So because of the fact that there was boobs, they had to suspend me via the technology policy. And needless to say, my parents were ridiculously angry with me. It was really bad. And for the next few months, I was only allowed to watch whatever the hell my mom was watching on TV, which was Hallmark movies. And I guarantee you my mother did that on purpose to make my punishment worse. I hate Hallmark movies, but that's besides the point. A few months later, I started actually being able to play games again and this and that or whatever, and I play the original Fear and its expansions. And I love the original Fear. I know it's not a boomer shooter, but it's a retro-ish. It's not retro, it only came out in 2005, but it's an older school type of game, and I still love Fear so much, and it's a fantastic game, and I'll probably make a video on it at some point. And at this point, I'm in the 10th grade, and I get two computers. Real computers for the first time, and they are old. Both of them from the year 2005. I have a Windows XP Gateway laptop because my stepmom left it in the storage room and nobody wanted it. And I asked about it, and they were like, well, you can't connect it to the internet, so sure, why not? Well, it turns out I was actually able to connect it to the internet And that's because she tried to install, like, some weird firewall thing for her job. I don't know what the heck it was, but the point is, I was able to download Steam, and at that point, I started putting games on it and everything else. But the thing about this laptop is that it had a little, like, wire or something stuck near where, like, the fan is. And whenever it would start spinning up, it sounded like a rusty chainsaw. It was really, really loud. And a little bit after that, I get this old gaming PC from about 2005 that is on screen right now. It's like a Pentium 4, some NVIDIA card. I don't know. But I used these PCs hard. In fact, I bought boxed copies of both the original Fear and Doom 3 to play on this computer. And then I started getting into playing other games and this and that and whatever. I played so many games. I played the original Blood on either of these computers, Max Payne, Hotline Miami, Quake. I beat Quake for the first time on both of these. I got addicted to Unreal Tournament at the time. It was a time in my life that I look back on fondly. I also got to play Return to Castle Wolfenstein as well, which was awesome. And that was what I had for a while. And then eventually I got a new laptop, which was like a crappy 2012 Toshiba thing. It was supposed to run Windows 8. It ran Windows 10. So I start playing newer games. And by newer, I mean literally anything that came out pre-2011. So that means the original Team Fortress 2, Killing Floor, and like Call of Duty 4, basically. Like games like that. It was older titles, primarily. Which is why I have such an appreciation for older games, because for the longest time, I had no ability to play modern titles unless I was at my dad's when I had an Xbox. So when I was at my mom's and I had my computers, I'd play retro games. When I was at my dad's, I'd play old titles. And it's really given me an appreciation for all gaming genres and timelines, because I can go between playing, like, modern Call of Duty and playing games on the Sega Saturn, which is awesome. By the way, I do have a Sega Saturn, and it is very cool. No, it is not for sale. So after this point, I get away from, like, boomer shooters, and at that point, I start buying used Xbox One games, rather, at this game store. And I finally play Wolfenstein: The New Order, a game that I've been wanting to play for years at that point. Because at this point, I'm like 15 or 16 or whatever, and I love it. And then, this is around 2019, and I start watching other retro YouTubers like Accursed Farms and Civ11 and a bunch of other people who are very influential on me and the type of videos that I want to make. Obviously, if you've been paying attention and watching these videos, you can tell the influence. But, I mean, hey, it's fun. I look back on that time very, very fondly. Like, I just was playing games. I was having fun. And then I'm a senior in high school, and I get my first real PC. A PC that had a crappy AMD CPU in it. I think it was an AMD FX 8020. It's like an 8-core CPU from like 2012. It wasn't really all that good. It had 16 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM and a GTX 1060 in it. And my mom bought it for me for about $100 off of my stepdad's old roommate, because it was more expensive to ship the PC out than just rebuild it. So I started actually playing more modern titles. So I ended up playing Apex Legends and current year Call of Duties and a bunch of other games. It was fantastic. It was really, really fun. I actually started to be able to play newer games, which was great. And quarantine hits. Now, I love me some quarantine. Quarantine was fun. Quarantine allowed me to play through a bunch of games, and this PC was powerful enough so that way I could play the original, well, not the original, the remake of Resident Evil 2 on max settings at 60 FPS with no problems. Same thing with the remake of 3. I played through Master Chief Collection and a bunch of other things. And then it is March 20th, 2020, and if you know that date, it's because Doom Eternal came out. And, yep. That is a good game. I love the hell out of that. And at that point, I become obsessed with boomer shooters again. So I start playing through all the current classics. I played Medieval, Iron Maiden, Dusk, a bunch of different games. Most of them were New Blood. I played a lot of boomer shooters, so I started playing all the old classics as well. And then I started playing Marathon around this time. And Marathon was a different experience for me because I had gone through playing all the retro boom shoots, and I was aware that Marathon was a thing, but I tried it. I was like a freshman in high school, and I couldn't get past the first level because I had an 8 brain. I wasn't having the attention span to play that. But I played through the trilogy in the span of about a week and a half. And it gave me appreciation for gaming and everything else that I could do. And, I mean, yeah, that's basically it. I mean, like, that's how I started playing boomer shooters and my history with them and my history with games as a whole. I mean, I love boomer shooters and FPS games, and that's mostly what I end up playing. And I honestly wouldn't change my gaming upbringing for the world because it gave me an appreciation for games of all generations. I tend to gravitate towards older titles, mostly because that's what I ended up playing as a kid, and I have, admittedly, childhood nostalgia, but yeah. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Next video is going to be something a little bit different. Just like this one's going to be more of like a commentary type video. It's actually going to be, I'm going to talk about some Warhammer stuff again. And I'm going to talk about my Space Marine chapter that I've made, which I've changed the lore for at least 3 different times because I'm just coming up with new concepts because I am currently listening to the Horus Heresy series. I just finished book 1, and I'm currently listening to the first Siege of Terra book, and, yeah, it's good stuff. Anyways, have a good night, everybody.